Greetings, dear friends. You are watching the Ruslan Belov channel. Today we will take a detailed look at the current situation in Ukraine. Over the past 24 hours, a truly large number of significant and, in many ways, decisive events have taken place. So without unnecessary introductions, let us move straight to the review. As of today, an extremely large amount of important and diverse information is coming in. We begin our analysis with the Zaporizhzhia direction. On this sector of the line of contact, units of the armed forces of the Russian Federation continue active offensive operations, primarily along the western axis. Over the course of the day, new map adjustments appeared, published by various pro-Russian analysts and experts. According to these data, Russian units have once again managed to improve their tactical positions along the chain of strongpoints located between the settlements of Stepnogorskoye, Lukyanovskoye, and Orekov. In this area, the Russian army is demonstrating steady forward progress. At the same time, it is worth noting that we have already observed a similar configuration of offensive operations before. However, at that time, events developed not from west to east, as they are now, but in the opposite direction, from east to west. Moreover, that offensive continues to some extent to this day. We are referring to pressure exerted from the area of the settlement of Vuhledar in a western direction. As a result of this pressure, we can see that at present, Russian units have effectively moved right up to the outskirts of the settlement of Orekov. As for the eastern Zaporizhzhia sector, a minor adjustment has been recorded on the maps there. With a high degree of probability, this adjustment is temporary and will remain in place only for a limited period, after which it will most likely be removed. This is precisely how the map looked as recently as yesterday. Today, however, footage of objective control has appeared in the public domain, indicating an attempt at a so-called contour strike carried out by the armed forces of Ukraine. This video was published by Russian sources. The footage clearly shows that under extremely unfavorable weather conditions, several units of Ukrainian armored vehicles attempted to break through the defensive lines of the armed forces of the Russian Federation and push as deep as possible into Russian positions. Naturally, these actions did not go unanswered. Ukrainian equipment was promptly stopped by multiple strikes carried out by FPV drone operators and other unmanned strike assets. Subsequently, all of the involved equipment was completely disabled and destroyed. All recorded FPV drone strikes were carried out precisely within these fields. One of the episodes was accurately geolocated. It was in this specific area that Ukrainian equipment was struck. Another strike was recorded at a different point located nearby. Thus, based on the analysis of these video materials, a minor adjustment was made to the map, assuming that the Ukrainian side was attempting to penetrate the defense as deeply as possible, potentially with the aim of consolidating positions and creating a foothold. At this point, it remains unclear what exact objectives were assigned to these units. It cannot be ruled out that such actions were undertaken for the sake of creating a media effect or a demonstrative victory. However, more serious intentions also cannot be excluded. I would like to remind you that several days ago information emerged about the concentration in this area of a fairly powerful and experienced Ukrainian grouping, including all assault units without exception. It is possible that the Ukrainian side is now attempting to conduct contour strikes in an effort to at least partially improve its position ahead of a potential Zaporizhzhia offensive. This offensive will most likely begin after the stabilization of the front line and the completion of the strengthening of Ukrainian positions along the Haichur River. Throughout today, pro-Russian as well as neutral sources published a large number of reports and analytical summaries regarding this attempted contour offensive. So far, these data have not been supported by objective control video footage. According to the latest unconfirmed reports, the Russian side has managed to successfully repel this attack. Nevertheless, we continue to await additional information and more detailed confirmation. Next, we move to the Pokrovsk sector of the front, which also partially falls within the Dnipropetrovsk direction. Today, information emerged that Russian units managed to improve their positions in the area of the settlement of Vuhledar. These reports are being disseminated by several neutral cartographic services at once. In this area, the Russian army continues its active offensive, gradually expanding its bridgehead on the Ukrainian side of the Solona River. We then move on to the Dobropilya sector of the line of contact. At the moment, new information from the directions of Pokrovsk, Mirnohrad, and Rodinska has practically ceased to appear. The General Staff of Ukraine officially denies reports that the settlements of Mirnohrad and Rodinsky have come under the control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. According to the Ukrainian side, combat operations are still ongoing in these areas. At the same time, no new cartographic adjustments have been recorded recently. In effect, we are now observing a phase of regrouping. Both sides to the conflict, Russian and Ukrainian alike, are waiting for an improvement in weather conditions. Without the stable operation of reconnaissance assets and FPV drone operators, further advancement for the Russian side is currently extremely difficult. Slightly farther north, reports are coming in from the area of the settlement of Novosharkovo. A number of neutral cartographic sources indicate today that Russian units have managed to improve their positions in this sector, south of the settlement of Volnaya. I would like to remind you that just yesterday, the Ministry of Defense and the General Staff reported advances in the area of Volnaya. Today, however, information about advances is being reported specifically in relation to the Novosharkovo area. At the same time, there is a high probability that the Ministry of Defense will not officially confirm advances precisely in the Novosharkovo area. The reason is that reports of advances or control in this sector were already published several months ago, before the start of the Ukrainian counteroffensive that took place in August-September 2025. For this reason, a repeated official report will most likely not follow. We continue to wait for the appearance of geolocations or video materials, for example from the Novo Donbas area, which would allow for precise map adjustments on this sector. Next, we move to the Konstantinivka direction. For several consecutive days now, virtually no new information has been coming in from this sector of the front. I would like to remind you that according to the latest statements by the commander of the South Group of Forces, the Russian side allegedly controls around 50% of the city's residential housing. However, as of the end of the day on December 29, 2025, we have still not received any visual confirmation to support these claims. On the contrary, geolocation data continue to emerge, including from the southern and southwestern parts of Konstantinivka. These recordings show FPV drone strikes against Ukrainian military equipment. The source of these attacks was reportedly the area near the H-32 highway. We have just reviewed the corresponding video materials. Please note that the strikes are being carried out along the perimeter of the city of Konstantinivka. Based on this pattern of strikes, it is extremely difficult to imagine a frontline configuration in which half of the city's residential areas would be under Russian control. Next, we move on to the Sloviansk sector of the front. A significant number of various cartographic and operational adjustments are coming in from this direction today. Some of them have already been confirmed, while others remain unverified. It is also from this direction that information has emerged about yet another counterattack carried out by the armed forces of Ukraine. I would like to remind you that the first such episode was previously discussed on the Vuhledar sector. The second counterattack, recorded over the past 24 hours, took place on the Siversk direction. The corresponding video footage was published today by pro-Russian experts and sources. The situation shown in these recordings is largely similar to previous episodes. Several units of Ukrainian armored vehicles managed to advance to the easternmost outskirts of the city of Sviatopokrovsk. Pay attention to the conditions under which this took place: dense fog, snowfall, and extremely unfavorable weather. Conditions that effectively rule out normal operations by FPV drone operators. It was under the cover of this poor weather that Ukrainian equipment attempted to reach the positions. Strikes using unmanned aerial systems were carried out against the single vehicle that managed to reach the forward line. After several precise strikes, Ukrainian personnel began to withdraw in the opposite direction, while the remaining equipment was completely destroyed. This episode was accurately geolocated at that specific point. The footage is unquestionably recent, as confirmed by the presence of snow cover similar to that currently observed across almost all of Ukraine. Thus, the fact that a counterattack took place is confirmed. Exactly how the Ukrainian side organized this counterattack remains unclear. However, throughout the day, a significant number of publications appeared stating that this attack was also successfully repelled. At this stage, no map adjustments are being made, and we are awaiting additional information from this sector. Once new confirmations, geolocations, or video materials appear, corresponding adjustments may be introduced. At the same time, we can see that over the past 24 hours, the Ukrainian side, taking advantage of difficult weather conditions, carried out several counterattacks. Their objectives may have ranged from local tactical improvements to a broader attempt to test the condition and resilience of the defenses of the armed forces of the Russian Federation in certain sectors of the front. In parallel, information continues to come in from various pro-Russian cartographic services regarding further advances by the Russian army westward from Sviatopokrovsk toward the settlements of Kaliniki and Kryva Luka. The advance in this area is assessed as fairly significant, with a high tempo of offensive operations. However, as we discussed in previous briefings, the key strongpoint and strategically important position at present is not so much the settlements themselves, but rather the network of dominant high ground in the area of Kryva Luka. It is precisely for control over these strategic heights that the fiercest fighting is now taking place. All maneuvers currently observed in this direction are primarily aimed at advancing in the area of these heights, located near the Siversk Donets River. Accordingly, active offensive operations by Russian units are currently being recorded here. In addition, today the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation officially announced that the settlement of Dnipro has come under the full control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Over the past 24 hours, the map in this direction has undergone corresponding changes. In effect, Russian units have reached the Siversk Donets River from the Lyman side, that is, from the southern direction. As a result, the area of Kryva Luka, along with the northern group of heights, is gradually being enveloped from two directions, both from the northwest and from the southeast. As for the situation directly in the Lyman area, no new information has been received from there so far. The situation there closely resembles what we are currently observing in the Konstantinivka area. There is a large volume of publications in the information space claiming advances, territorial control, numbers of residential buildings, and similar details. However, when examining cartographic data, both for Konstantinivka and for Lyman, it becomes clear that the overwhelming majority of these reports are not yet reflected on the maps of almost any authoritative cartographic service. Next, we move toward Yarova and Sviatozhzhia. In this sector, the Russian army continues active offensive operations. This information is currently confirmed by neutral cartographic resources as well. In particular, Russian units are advancing actively within the Sviatozhzhia forest area. This is a fairly extensive territory where combat operations already took place earlier, back in 2022, at the very beginning of the current conflict. At present, the Russian army is advancing confidently here, and it appears that a bridgehead for further offensive development is gradually being formed in this sector. It cannot be ruled out that in the future, movement may continue as far as the direction of Izium and the Oskil River area, with the aim of blocking or cutting off the supply routes of the entire Borova sector of the front. As for the situation in the areas of Kupiansk, Vovchansk, as well as the Sumy direction, virtually no new information has been received from there over the past 24 hours. Once again, it is worth recalling that extremely difficult weather conditions currently prevail across Ukraine. As a result, both sides are most likely using this period for regrouping, recovery, and the accumulation of forces. After weather conditions stabilize, the beginning of a new phase and another cycle of combat operations can be expected. Thank you to everyone who watches the channel. Subscribe, support the video with likes, and all the best to you.